I thought I'll just step aside and at the time would prove you wrong. And that you would be the fool when the sun beams and the starlights begin to talk mystery. Oh, suffice to defend.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. How's everyone doing out there? I know I can't hear you. I know I can't see you. There's a chat over there on the side. Feel free to utilize that as we go along. I'll try to keep up. Today we're going to talk about how to get your guest data out of OwnerRez and into MarketMySTR using Zapier. First, I'm going to point out I'm wearing my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth hat today. So I wanted to take a moment to thank Bill and Scott, all the folks at MarketMySTR, for rolling out this fantastic product. You're already using it, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I don't need to sell you on it. I love it. I think it's great. So kudos to those folks. As part of MarketMySTR, they rolled out the 200-day rebook workflow designed to interact with your guests starting at the time and day in which they depart. We've come up with a process to fully automate that, so that's what we're going to be going through today. If you have any questions as we go along, put them in the chat. I'll try to keep up. If not, I'll be able to answer them at the end or reply with a short video. If you're listening to the on-demand broadcast, you can also add a question in the chat and we can get back to it at a later time. So with that, let's kick off the conversation, shall we? So we're going to talk about three things today. Number one, why we created this. Number two, how does it work? We're going to walk through the entire setup process from start to finish, and then talk about some potential issues you might come across after you've set this up and how to address them. So number one, why did we create this? When this rolled out, there was a manual piece of this entire process where you would have to go into MarketMySTR, assign a checkout day or time to your guests, and that would initiate them going into the workflow and starting the whole 200-day email and text process. When I first thought this, I thought to myself, wow, how do we fully automate this to start without any manual intervention? So started working on how we could do that. You can connect OwnerRez directly to MarketMySTR and move guest data over. Unfortunately, it didn't work super well because the checkout date is not really associated with the guest information. Just the way the data is stored on the OwnerRez side made it very difficult. We tried a couple of things, putting this into a spreadsheet and then moving that over to MarketMySTR. Eventually, through the work of Jose, the folks at MarketMySTR, and myself, we came up with this process that seems to work pretty flawlessly. A couple of us have been using it for some time now, and it works very well. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So there's basically three components to this. You have your guest information and your booking information that lives within OwnerRez. We're going to take that via an email trigger through Zapier, and they have an email parser application that we'll use, extract the data out of that email, and then map it back to MarketMySTR, getting all of your guest information, including the day and time that they're checking out, all into MarketMySTR. So you need to have an OwnerRez account, you need to have a Zapier account, and you need to have a MarketMySTR account. I think this will work with a few other PMSs as well. We'll talk about those at a later date. Probably first will be Hospitable and then others, but this isn't unique to OwnerRez. So if you have another PMS and want to utilize this process, you should be able to. So let me share my screen here. The first step in the process, you will want to create a couple of new fields associated with your guest information within MarketMySTR. If you go into your settings, you'll find custom fields under other settings. Click on that and you'll see a whole long list of custom fields that already exist in your account, and this is where we can add new ones. So you'll want to add a field. For this process, we only need to add one, and that is booking, checkout, we'll call it checkout date. You'll use the single line text input. Click on the next field, next button. You'll want to make sure to give it a name. We're going to call this check out date. In the group, it's just will kind of designate where it shows up if you're looking at the contact information. I like to put this in either general info or additional info. It doesn't really matter. And then save it. So now all of your contacts will have this custom field. If you want to do fun things related to the day that your guest booked, maybe you want to send them an email 1 year later, you'll want to put the booking date field in there as well. And it's the same process. Add a field, single line. Make sure the object is under contact. I think it does that by default. Give that a name, something about book date, whatever. I won't save this because I already have this. And so we'll use those two fields from our OwnerRez information. So I know I'm going pretty quick here. Hopefully you can keep up or come back when this is on demand and walk through this at your own pace. Next thing we want to do is go into OwnerRez, and we're going to create a custom field here as well. So if you go into your settings, custom field definitions, we're going to create a new custom field for the tag that we're going to use within MarketMySTR. So if you were to look at your workflow, if you already have one set up, in the trigger, you'll find that there's a tag. So when that tag gets added to a contact, this process will begin. So whatever this tag is here, you'll want that value to be the same in your custom field within OwnerRez. So you can use a different one for different properties. You could use the same one if you have properties in 2 different cities and you want to build workflows based on the city and not the property. Whatever tag you want to use to kick off that workflow, that's what you'll want to assign to each of your properties. So sorry, clicked on the wrong thing there. So when you're in custom fields, get back to the beginning there, you'll create field definition. The type will be property. The name, you can get whatever you want to name it. It's just for your own information. I called it 200-day workflow tag. Then you give it a code. This is a code that gets used later on to insert it in an email. Just call it 200-day tag or whatever. Keep it plain text. make sure it's active, and then hit save. Once you've created that, you can assign the value to each property you have. All right, so now we've got the information, the new fields added in OwnerRez. We have the new fields added in MarketMySTR, and now we're going to set up the process of emailing all this information to the Zapier email parser and on to MarketMySTR. So if you go into your Zapier account and click on apps over here, you're going to want to add the email parser by Zapier app. So if you just start typing, you should see it, and then you'll want to connect. When you hit connect, it'll launch this little pop-up window. You'll probably need to log in again for the first time to get this set up. Hit the authorize button. It's just the same credentials you use to log in to Zapier. And then when you get a window similar to this, you'll want to come down to mailboxes. You'll see I already have a couple of different mailboxes set up. Yours will be blank if you're in here for the first time. And then hit create mailbox. What happens at this point is it creates a unique email address only for you and for this particular purpose, and it's going to wait to receive an email so we can tell it what to do with that email. So at this point, take note of what this email address is, copy and paste it, throw it into a notepad file, whatever you need to do to have that handy. You can leave this window open and go back into OwnerRez. So we've created the mailboxes Zapier. We know the email address we're going to send this to. Now we need to create a template and a trigger to send an email to Zapier. So if you're in your OwnerRez settings, you'll want to go into templates, and we're going to create a new email template. That includes information about a booking. So there'll be a little pull down menu here. Select the type of template, booking. When this comes up, it'll be blank. You'll have a name, a from email name, from email address. You can leave those blank. It'll populate your defaults to your account, which is totally fine. And then we have the to field. So in the to email section, you'll want to grab that email address from Zapier that we created moments ago and pop this in the to field. You can give it a subject. The subject is irrelevant. And then we're going to populate all of the fields that we want to include that will go from OwnerRez over to MarketMySTR. So you'll start to put in things like you want to go to contact, so you can insert the contact's first name. I like to put these on a separate line, and then you'll want to insert field last name. You can see there's all kinds of fields that you can input here. So their name, their phone number, their address, their email address, all the important contact information. You can also go over to the booking tab up here and find things about bookings. So if you wanted to include how many pets are in the reservation, if you want to do something with that in your communications, really anything that you want to be in MarketMySTR as a means for you to filtering your guests and contacting them in different ways, you could all include that here. The important piece is the departure day, as well as if you wanted to contact them based on when they booked, you'll include booking date. So I already have this set up already, which you can see here. And if you would like to simply copy and paste exactly what I have done, I will pop this document into the chat, and you should be able to just copy and paste without going through each of those one by one. So that link is in the chat there. Hopefully you see it and can use it. To go through these quickly, I've got first name, last name, email address, phone number, address 1, address 2, I put those on the same line, city, state, zip, country, and then I have their booking date, and then I have their checkout date as well as checkout time. That will default to whatever the property checkout time is, unless you change it for a specific reservation, and it would update accordingly. There's a line for tag, which I include that new custom field that we created for each property that matches the tag. If you wanted to set other tags within MarketMySTR, you could do that right here. Just separate them by a comma. So if you wanted to tag them based on property name, you could insert that field, go to property. There's one here for property name. You could insert that. If you have multiple properties within the same city and you wanted to tag them by location, there are options to do that as well. Anything that you would want to use as a tag for the contact in MarketMySTR, you could include as many as you wanted to here. I include the property name. I also include the source, which within OwnerRez would be whether they booked on Airbnb, Vrbo, Direct, whatever other sources you might be linked to, and then I put that into MarketMySTR as well. So if I ever wanted to contact just people that booked on Airbnb, for example, I would be able to do that. All right, so once we have this template created, make sure you hit save and close. And you'll want to go back to your settings, and we will now create a trigger. You'll want to create a new trigger, and the event is kind of whenever you want to send this. So I have set this up I'll just go to the one I created. Based on when the guest is departing, so it sends it 0 days before the guest departs at 8 a.m. So the morning that they're leaving at 8 a.m., I will send this email. It's possible that you want to get your guest information into MarketMySTR before they check out. Maybe right after they booked, maybe right after they fill out the rental agreement, whatever you would want that to be, you could set the trigger up accordingly. I've done it this way because it suits my needs. If the guest is checking out on that day, I presume that there'll be no other changes to their contact information. There'll be no other changes to the day they're departing at this point. So I don't have to worry about updating information. This is the time that I'm going to send all of this from OwnerRez to MarketMySTR. If you want to send this sooner, you could do that. You would just need to create an additional trigger anytime specific information is updated. So if their checkout date were to change, you could create a new trigger to update that accordingly. This way is a little simpler for me. I don't need to worry about updating information because at this point nothing is really going to change. So that you can set the trigger accordingly. You could retry it if you need to. In my case, I don't need to retry. You'll give it a description that's just an internal name so you can see what it's looking for. And the key part is action. You'll want to send an email template, and then you should see the name of that template we created moments ago. I called it Zapier email trigger. You call whatever you want. Just select that, and hopefully that tapping sound goes away, Eric. I don't know what it's causing now. Click save, and now your trigger will be set up to send that email at whatever time you've selected it to. I'm not going to hit save because I've already saved it. Now my dogs are going crazy. Guys. Okay, sorry about that. So now we've created the template, we've created the trigger, and now we want to send a test email over to Zapier and make sure that that is going properly, and then we got to tell Zapier what to do with the information that it receives. If you go into your bookings and go into a future booking and click on messages, if you scroll to the bottom, you should see one where it says send Zapier email trigger template, and then it should say when it's going to send based on the criteria that you put into that trigger. It should show the status, when it'll be sent, and then there's a little pull down for action. We can go ahead and send that now, and it'll pop up your template that you created, except it will populate information that we had on the guest that you just selected in your booking. You can hit send email, and off it should go. And at that point, you'll go back into this little email parser window. If you closed it, if you just go back into Zapier and go into apps, you should see the email parser, and you can click on add a connection, and it'll pop that window up again. So if you still have the window open, there's a button there that said refresh, so you can do that. Oh, I still have that one open. If you refresh, it should show the email that you just sent, the test email, as well as the information that was in the email. It might take a second to come through. Keep refreshing if it's not there. If you don't find it, double check the email address you sent through OwnerRez. Maybe there's an issue there. Once everything comes through, all the information, yours will look a little differently than mine. I've already set this particular one up. You'll simply, let's make it look like yours. If you highlight the guest's first name, I can't really do that in my window because I'm not looking at quite the same as you are. You can give it a name. I just call it first name. You can have spaces in there. It doesn't really matter. Call it whatever you want. And you'll want to go through line by line, highlight the information, and give it a name as to what that data field is. So I've called mine last name, email, phone number, address, city, state, zip code, country, etc., etc. Do the same thing for the book date, checkout, the tags, property, and source. And then you'll want to save the template. All right, everyone's still with me so far? All right. Don't see anything new in the chat. I'll assume everyone is trotting along splendidly. All right, once we've got that template assigned and saved, we need to, you can close out of that. Now we're going to create the Zap that puts them all together. I have already created this, but you'll want to create a new Zap, and the first trigger, you'll want to assign that to, maybe I just create a new one right quick. All right, we'll create a new Zap. Click on trigger over here, and you'll want to search for email parser. Email parser by Zapier. The account, you might need to set this for the first time. Oh, choose an event. You want to select new email. Hit continue. The account you might need to set up and link for the first time. It might show up there automatically. The mailbox, you will probably only see one mailbox there, the one that you just created. If that was your first time creating a mailbox, I have a couple to choose from, but you'll select the mailbox that we just used with our test email. And now we're going to test it. Oh, I didn't actually send an email. To that email. So it should pull up a couple of records. You can hit find new records if there are none. You'll have probably only one to choose from, the one that we used in the test out of OwnerRez. You'll want to hit continue. And now we need to create the action. So what do we do when this email parser gets an email? We're going to connect this to MarketMySTR and select lead connector. That's what their little backend database uses, lead connector. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize my face was already there. You don't need to see me. There. Is that better? The trigger was new email and the email parser. So select event from new email. All right, so we're going to lead connector. You might need to, so choose an event. We're going to add update contact. Select continue. Account, you might need to connect your account, enter your login credentials to connect those two. I'm already connected, so hopefully that is pretty self-explanatory. So now we've got an action, and we should see all of these fields that are contact fields within MarketMySTR. Yours may look a little different if you've added or subtracted other existing fields, but this is pretty much everything associated with a contact within MarketMySTR. So now this is where we map the two together. So for the first name, for the field in MarketMySTR, we're going to find the output of parsing that email. When we selected the field and we called it first name, that's what this information is, first name. We're going to do the same for last name. Whoops. You can start to use a little search to narrow down the list of fields. We're going to hit last name for last name, full name. We can do first name, space, and then enter last name. I don't know why it's this way in MarketMySTR, but alas, it's first name, last name, and there's a field for full name. You're going to go through each of these fields, assign them all, email, address, city, state, zip. The tags, hopefully those came through. You'll see those down here as well. Output tag. Source was what we used, the booking source. Mark as lead is required. If you're doing anything, maybe you call, maybe you actually use this lead fields if you're differentiating bookers versus guests. If you use StayFi, that sort of thing, you can mark that accordingly based on if you want them to be true or false, marked as a lead. You can skip, business name. There's country. Booking date will be, what we assigned as well as property and checkout date. Once you have all that, you'll want to hit continue, and then you can test. Once you test, it's going to take that email and parse it and port it over to MarketMySTR. Zapier can take a second to run, but if you go into your contacts, hopefully the top contact you see is the test that you just sent over. Double check that everything looks okay, that you see the first name, last name. Hopefully they have the tag. I have the general info is where I put, additional info. That's where I put things like checkout date, property, booking date. Hopefully all that came over. At this point, if everything looks good, you'll want to, I'm going to skip for now, hit publish, and it'll be active. So at that point, once that trigger happens, within OwnerRez, it'll parse through this email parser and update into Lead Connector. There's one other little step that we need to add, however, and that is formatting the checkout time, the day and time, so that's in the proper format for MarketMySTR to recognize it as a day and time and to start that workflow automatically. So if you go back into the Zap that we created, saved, and published, you'll want to edit it, and you're going to add a step between the two. Search for formatter. There's formatter by Zapier, and you'll want to click on that, and it'll add a step. From there, you'll want to select event, which will be date time. Continue. I'm going to go into the one that I've already created. The action is you're going to format, and there is, let's see. Whoops, transform, format. So the input on the datetime formatter will be what you've used for checkout, that checkout date and time. So in my case, it shows as February 10th, 2024, 10 a.m. If you put exactly that into MarketMySTR, it's not going to be able to recognize it and start the workflow. So you want to choose a format to export it to. There's a lot of janky looking things here. You'll want to select this one that looks like year as 4 digits dash month dash days space hour minute seconds space capital Z. And the rest you can leave as is and hit continue. You can test, and then hopefully the output will look something like that. Hopefully you can all see that. I'll paste that into the chat. Should look like that. If everything looks good, you'll want to publish, and that basically will save that for future use. Now our Zap is done, it's published. Make sure that it says that it's on, and then it'll start looking for and processing those emails as soon as it receives it. So if you go back to MarketMySTR and your workflows, let me click on automation here. So that you might see, if you've not done anything with any of your workflows, you might see the 200-day rebook strategy, and then you might see a version 2. You'll want to work with the version 2, which added an additional step of waiting for checkout time. So your trigger is going to be contact tag. So whenever a guest gets a specific tag, they're going to go into this workflow. So under filter, make sure you have tag added, select the tag that you are using, save the trigger. I have a little fail-safe here to make sure that checkout date is not empty. That's not required, but just make sure that people don't go in there without an actual checkout date. And then the first step in the workflow is you're setting the event start. So there's an action, set event start time. That's the name I've given it. You'll select custom field and then select the checkout date field that we created early. And so you can see here that it recommends the type of format that field should be in. That's why we had to format through Zapier, so it would be in a format that MarketMySTR would recognize. The next step will be wait until scheduled checkout time. So the trigger is, if you don't have this, wait for, it'll be time-based event appointment time. I wait for the exact time so that it'll start exactly when the guest checkout time is, and then that'll get them into the workflow. I do wait an additional 5 minutes because I thought it'd be weird to text guests exactly at 10 a.m. when they're checking out. So I wait 5 minutes, I send a text, I wait some time, I email, and then off the workflow goes. The only thing I've added a little bit different is I add a tag at the end based on the property that the guest stayed at. So if I happen to be mailing old past guests from a long time ago and they're in this workflow, I don't want to be bombarding them with multiple messages. So I leave them out of that pool until the very end. My guess is that this may not work flawlessly the first time, which is why we've created this whole section about issues. So some of the biggest issue that I've found is within the email parser itself. So sometimes, even though it's a pretty simple format, it doesn't always recognize the data in the way that we told it to. So if you notice issues, sometimes I've seen where the guest's first name and last name both wind up in the first name field in MarketMySTR. This is not a problem in OwnerRez, it's not a problem in MarketMySTR, it's just the way that this email parser works. So if you see something that didn't come over correctly, you want to go into apps, go into the email parser, it should pop up this little window again, go into mailboxes, view emails. Oops, let's go to one where I actually have emails. And then it'll show you all the information and how it decided to parse it out. So if you mouse over it, you'll see what it assigned to what. If anything is incorrect, you can go over here and report it as inaccurate and kind of go through every item and reassign it again. So you can see I've done that 4 times in this particular mailbox, and hopefully over time it'll get better at learning and you won't have any additional issues. So you might have to do this a couple of times if you find that the data is coming over a little strange. Yeah, hopefully that will then fix itself. So, I know that was a lot. Anybody have any questions, concerns? Great, you guys are A+ students. If you found this useful, hit the thumbs up button down there. You can also subscribe. We'll be doing some other things, fun little hacks and tidbits. Join our Facebook group, which you can get through our website at strtechtalk.com. And if that's it for now, feel free to post any questions if you come back, and we'll try to get answers for you as well. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and happy tech talking.